Good day, everyone. So now I will discuss to you the answers for our midterm quiz. So the general instruction is to write your solutions clearly on a one whole sheet of paper, take a picture of your answers, and attach to your work. So I hope you followed well our instruction. So before we proceed to the transactions, let's read first the requirements. So the requirements is to prepare the journal entries for each of the following transactions and make a T account for each title. So, we have here, Louis established a sole proprietorship named LGM and invested 500,000 cash on May 22, 2020. So, before we start our journal entry, we have another instruction here. Strictly follow this chart of accounts in making the journal entries. So we have here the account titles that we should use. So kung hindi ito ginamit, so mali na. Now, I will not consider kasi sabi dito, strictly follow this chart of accounts. So let's start. Our transaction is May 22. May 22. So, the transaction is investment of the owner, which means the value received or yung debit natin is cash of 500,000 kasi yan yung pumasok sa ating business. Next, credit naman natin. Our credit is, okay, so literally walang lumabas sa business. Pero, na-analyze natin na nagkaroon tayo ng capital. So, kung babalikan natin yung ating normal balances, si Adelic, so si capital is nandito sa credit side. So, yung credit natin is LGM capital. Again, we should use the prescribed chart of accounts. Okay. Next transaction we have is May 23. So May 23, we have purchased of machinery worth 100,000. Half was paid in cash and the balance on credit. So dito sa transaction, bumili tayo ng machinery, pero half nito is binayaran natin and ang half is inutang natin. So, again, ano yung pumasok sa business natin? So, yung pumasok is machinery. So, we debit machinery in the amount of 100,000. And then, ano yung lumabas? So, the value parted with is first the cash, which is half of the 100,000. So, 50,000. And then, the balance is on credit. Ibig sabihin, inutang natin yung remaining. So, credit tayo ng accounts payable, which is a liability account in the amount of 50,000. So, again, credit ito, no? Ang tawag natin dito, compound entry. Ibig sabihin, dalawa yung ating, more than one yung ating credit side. So, again, kapag gumagawa tayo ng journal entry, dapat balanse yung ating debit and yung ating credit. So, again, ito 100,000 and then ito 100,000. So, next transaction, we have May 30, purchased office supplies worth 20,000 on account. So, again, yung pumasok sa atin, yung office supplies of 20,000 and then we credit since on account, so credit tayo ng accounts payable of 20,000. Next transaction, we have June 13. So, June 13, rendered professional services to a client on credit, billed the client for 50,000. So, ang transaction na ito is nag-render tayo. Ibig sabihin, nagbigay tayo ng service sa ating customer. Pero sabi, on credit, ibig sabihin, hindi pa bayad ng customer natin. So again, ano yung pumasok? Again, walang pumasok kasi nga hindi pa nagbabayad si customer. Pero na-analyze natin na nagkaroon tayo ng receivable or collectibles, which is an asset. So, debit tayo ng accounts receivable in the amount of 50,000. And then, again walang pumasok pero nagkaroon tayo ng collectibles kasi hindi pa nagbayad si customer. So, kaya nag-debit tayo ng accounts receivable. Ngayon, yung credit naman natin, yung value parted with, again, walang lumabas sa atin, pero na-analyze natin na nagkaroon tayo ng income kasi nga nag-render tayo ng service kay customer. So, si income is nasa credit side. So, yung tamang account title dyan na gagamitin natin is itong service revenue. Service revenue of 50,000. Okay? Next, June 14, incurred and paid 5,000 transportation expenses by traveling to and from the client. So, dito sa transaction, sa pag sinabing incurred, nakagamit or gumastos tayo and nagbayad tayo ng 5,000 for the transportation expense. So, again, walang pumasok sa business, pero na-analyze natin na nagkaroon tayo ng expense. So, since expense is nasa debit, so debit tayo ng transportation expense, and then, ano ba yung lumabas sa atin? Sabi, paid 5,000. So, kung nagbayad tayo, ibig sabihin, meron tayong pinalabas na cash of 5,000 pesos. Okay? So, yun yung entry natin. Next transaction, we have July 22, paid the remaining balance from the May 23 purchase. So, ito yung tinutukoy niya. So, yung balance natin dito, babayaran na natin. So, yung accounts payable, again, kapag binayaran natin yung utang natin, magdi-decrease yung utang. So, para mag-decrease yung utang, dapat i-debit natin siya. So, debit tayo ng accounts payable in the amount of, sabi niya, pay the remaining account. Okay. So, 50,000 yung binayaran. 50,000. And then, since nagbayad tayo, merong lumabas sa atin na cash. Cash of 50,000 pa din. Okay. Next, we have July 1. Okay, for July 1, paid the remaining balance from the office supplies purchase. So, ito yung tinutukoy niya na office supplies na pinurchase natin. So, binayaran daw yung remaining balance. So, again, pag nagbayad tayo ng utang, mababawasan yung utang natin. So, para mabawasan, debit natin accounts payable, 20,000. And then, credit tayo ng cash of 20,000 pesos. Next, July 13, collected 30,000 from the client's open account. So, ang tinutukoy nitong transaction transaction ng July 13 is yung transaction June 13. So, eto, sabi nakakolekta na daw tayo from the client's open account. So, eto yun, yung account receivable, yung tinutukoy na client's open account. So, na-collect na natin yung 30,000, ibig sabihin mababawasan na yung receivable natin. So, para mabawasan siya, i-credit natin siya. Pero again, dito muna tayo sa debit kung ano yung pumasok. Of course, kapag nakakolect tayo, ibig sabihin nakatanggap tayo ng cash. So, debit natin yung cash, 30,000. And then, credit natin yung accounts receivable para mabawasan yung collectibles natin kay client, 30,000. Next, July 25, yung ating transaction is purchase of equipment for the personal use of Louis worth 25,000 paid in cash. So, this transaction is for the personal use of Louis. So, itong transaction na to is a personal, nag-purchase ng equipment for the personal use of Louis. Tapos, binayaran 25,000 in cash. So, since personal ito ni Louis, hindi natin siya i-record as equipment. I-record natin siya as drawing. So, LGM, drawings. Again, si drawings is nasa debit side ng ADE. Again. So, debit tayo ng walang pumasok pero nagkaroon tayo ng drawings. So, 25,000. Again, hindi natin nire-record yung equipment kasi nga for personal use yun ni Louis. So, i-assume natin na kumuha siya ng equipment, ginamit niya yung pera ng business, and then binili niya yung equipment for his personal use. So, yung lumabas sa atin is cash of 25,000 pesos. Next, we have purchased additional 5,000 worth of office supplies on account. So, ito na yung last transaction natin. Debit tayo, office supplies of 5,000 and then credit tayo ng on accounts, ibig sabihin accounts payable. Okay, so 5,000. So, ito na yung ating journal entry para sa lahat ng ating transactions. Okay, so after ng ating journal entry, ang next naman na requirement sa atin is yung T-account for each account title. Again, kapag nag-posting tayo, dapat lahat ng account titles na nilagay natin sa ating journal entry is dapat meron siyang sariling T-account. So, ito na yung itsura niya. Again ha, lahat. So, first, start tayo on May 22. We have 500,000 na nakadebit. Next, we have siguro, okay. So, next, we have capital na naka-credit, 500,000. Next, we have machinery. Hindi ko nalalagyan ng date kasi matatagalan tayo. And then, cash, 50,000. And then, we have accounts payable on credit na 50,000. Next, May 30, meron tayong office supplies na 20,000. And then, meron tayong accounts payable na 20,000 on the credit side. Next, meron tayong accounts receivable, June 13, 50,000. And then, credit tayo ng service revenue, 50,000. Next, 14, transportation expense. Debit, 5,000. And then, cash tayo, credit, 5,000. June 22, accounts payable, debit, 50,000. And then, sana yan? Eto, cash of 50,000, credit. Next, July 1, accounts payable, debit, 20,000. And then, meron tayong cash na 20,000 on credit. Next, July 13, debit tayo ng 30,000 from the collection. And then, credit tayo ng accounts receivable, 30,000. And lastly, hindi pa pala. Okay. Drawings, debit ng 25,000. And then, credit ng cash, 25,000. Okay, medyo marami yung cash natin. And then, debit ng office supplies of 5,000. And then, accounts payable of 5,000 credit. Okay. So, eto na yung ating T-accounts. So, hopefully, nasundan. So, ang gagawin natin dito is i-total na natin siya. Okay, so yan na ang ating T accounts. So, ito total na natin yung ating T accounts. So, let's start with cash. Okay, so for cash, again, ang gagawin natin, total lang natin yung itong debit at saka yung ating credit. So, 530 yung sa debit. And sa credit is we have 150,000. So, ang gagawin natin, total natin ulit. Dito. I-match natin yung debit tsaka credit. So, 530 less natin yung sa kabila kasi mas malaki yung debit side. So, sa debit side natin ilalagay yung final answer. So, yung cash natin, 380,000. Next, for accounts receivable, 50,000 less natin yung 30. Ibig sabihin meron tayong 20,000 on the debit side. Dito naman sa office supplies, we don't have value on the credit side. So, debit lahat, 25,000. Add lang natin. And then, dito naman sa machinery, 100,000. Again, dapat naka-double rule. And then, yung accounts payable natin on the debit side, we have 70. On the credit side, we have 75. So, ibig sabihin, pag tinotal natin to, meron pa tayong naiwan na accounts payable of 5,000 sa credit side. Okay? Next, for the capital, we have 500,000 for the drawings, 25,000 on the debit side. For the revenue, 50,000 on the credit side. And for our transportation, 5,000 on the debit side. So again, huwag kalimutan yung ating double rule. Okay? Wait. So double rule natin to lahat. Yan. So yan na yung final amounts natin. So ito na yung ating ginawang posting. So that's it. Okay, so sabi dito sa instruction sa atin, attach your work first before you proceed, and then click here for additional requirements. So, pag click nyo to, i-redirect kayo sa Google Forms. So, ito yung final talaga na part ng ating quiz. So, first, how much is the ending balance of cash? So, yung cash natin, ito, 380,000 based dun sa ating T account. Eto, 380,000. Yun yung answer sa dito sa first, no? Yung amount ating cash. Okay, so number 3, how much is the total equity at the end of the year? So, to compute for the total equity, ang gagawin muna natin is i-compute muna natin siya. So, let's start first with the capital of 500,000. Now, we have drawings. So, these drawings will be deducted from our capital, which is 25,000. And then, we have service revenue. Okay? We have here service revenue of 50,000, which will be added. And then, lastly, we have our transportation expense, which will also be deducted from our capital. So, ito total lang natin to. We have 500,000 less 25 plus 50,000 less 5,000. We have 520,000. So, ito yung ating total equity for the, or at the end of the year. Next question, how much was to be considered as an expense for the year? So, yung expense natin, nag-iisa lang naman to. Itong transportation expense of 5,000. So, answer natin is 5,000. Next, how much was the assets at the end of the year? So, yung assets natin, again, we have cash, we have accounts receivable, we have office supplies, we have machinery, and yon. So, yung mga amounts, kopyahin na natin. So, i-add natin to lahat. Kasi ito yung ating total assets. So, ang total assets natin is 525,000 pesos. And lastly, how much is to be considered as revenue for the year? Okay, so our revenue for the year is, 50,000 pesos.